My name is Commander Rax Volmir, and I have spent the last 20 cycles serving in the Valkyrian Imperial Guard. 20 cycles of perfection, discipline, and unchallenged superiority across 14 star systems. So naturally, when I heard that humans were coming to our training facility for joint military exercises, I laughed, actually laughed, out loud, in front of my entire command staff. Lieutenant Shira Quellis, my second in command, did not even try to hide her amusement. She stood there, all 7 feet of lean Valkyrian muscle, her crystalline eyes gleaming with that particular brand of arrogance we had earned through centuries of military dominance. "Humans, sir?" she asked, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension that would make a lesser species weep. "The ones from that absurdly heavy death world, the ones who need mechanical assistance just to walk properly in civilized gravity." "The very same," I replied, pulling up the datapad that contained our visitor's specifications. Oh, this was going to be entertaining. Apparently the Galactic Council thinks we should play nice, build bridges, foster cooperation. I made a gesture that in Valkyrian culture, roughly translates to extreme skepticism mixed with digestive discomfort. The training facility on Valkyra Prime was without question the finest military installation in the known galaxy. We had gravity chambers that could simulate conditions from 0.1 standard G all the way up to 5 times standard. We had obstacle courses that made grown Krellian warriors cry for their spawning pools. We had everything needed to forge the most elite soldiers the universe had ever seen, and we were about to share it with humans. Humans, the species that looked like they had been assembled from spare parts by a drunk creator who could not decide whether they wanted a predator or a prey animal. Bipedal, sure, but barely. Soft skin, no natural armor, no claws worth mentioning, and do not even get me started on their pathetic sensory organs. Dren, one of my best marksmen, was already snickering as he cleaned his plasma rifle. "I heard they have to wear special suits just to survive in normal gravity, Commander. Is that true?" "Gravity suits." "Yes," I confirmed, scrolling through the briefing materials with increasing amusement. "Apparently, their homeworld has something like 0.98 standard G. Can you believe it? Nearly full standard gravity. And they evolved there. Their bones are probably dense as collapsed stars. Their muscles overbuilt for any civilized environment. They are walking around the galaxy like they are wearing weights all the time." Volk, built like a boulder with anger issues, grunted from his position by the weapons rack. "So they are strong then? Could be interesting." "Strong maybe," Shira interjected, her tone making it clear what she thought of that assessment. "But strength without grace is just clumsiness. Strength without proper training is just mass. And from what I have read, humans are notorious for their fragility. They break bones from simple falls. They need constant hydration. They can barely handle temperature variations. They are held together with hope and stubbornness." Mira, our infiltration specialist, was practically dancing with glee. "I heard they get disoriented in anything above 1.2 G. Just disoriented, like their inner ears stop working or something, and they think they can train with us." The laughter that filled the command center was not cruel. Exactly. Well, maybe it was a little cruel, but honestly, what did the Galactic Council expect? You do not bring a fish to a climbing competition and expect everyone to pretend it has a chance. "When do they arrive, sir?" Shira asked, already smirking at the thought. I checked the chronometer. 6 hours. Plenty of time to prepare a proper welcome, the kind of welcome that would send them running back to their heavy little planet with their tails between their legs. If they had tails. I honestly was not sure about their anatomy. 6 hours later, I stood in the landing bay with my arms crossed, watching the human transport vessel settle onto the deck with all the grace of a drunken Blorthian trying to parallel park. The ship itself was chunky, over-engineered, and covered in more armor plating than seemed strictly necessary. Very human, really. Over-prepared for problems that proper design would simply avoid. The loading ramp descended with a hiss of hydraulics and out stepped our guests. Oh, this was even better than I had hoped. They were wearing their gravity suits, and calling them bulky would be like calling a supernova slightly bright. Each human was encased in what looked like a personal exoskeleton, all pistons and servo motors and reinforced joints. The suits whirred and clicked with every movement, like the humans were piloting tiny mechanized walkers rather than simply walking. Captain Hendrix Marlowe, according to my briefing materials, was the one in front, tall for a human, probably around 6 feet in their measurement system, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to be assessing everything at once. His suit was marked with rank insignia and what I assumed were unit patches, though they looked more like primitive tribal symbols than proper military designation. Behind him came 3 others. Reeves, a stocky male with red hair that seemed to defy gravity despite the suit. Nakamura, a female with sharp features and an expression that suggested she was already tired of whatever was about to happen, and Wolf, another male who looked like he had been carved from granite and then taught to scowl. They clomped down the ramp, their suits making mechanical sounds with each step, and I had to physically bite my tongue to keep from laughing. Shira had no such restraint. She let out a snort that echoed across the landing bay. Marlowe's eyes flicked to her, then to me, and I saw something there. Amusement, maybe? Surely not. Surely the human realized how absurd he looked, wrapped up in all that machinery just to walk around like a normal person. Commander Volmir, Marlowe said, his voice coming through the suit's external speakers. Thank you for hosting us. We are looking forward to the exercises. His tone was polite, professional, which somehow made the whole situation even funnier. Captain Marlowe, I replied, making a gesture of welcome that was only slightly mocking. Welcome to Velcora Prime. I trust your journey was comfortable. As comfortable as any long-range transport can be, he replied, and I swore I heard something in his voice. Humor, maybe. We appreciate the opportunity to train alongside the famous Velcarian Guard. Famous. Yes, we were rather famous for being the best. Dren stepped forward, eyeing the human suits with obvious fascination. Those are impressive machines, Captain. Must take quite a bit of training to operate them properly. Nakamura, the female, responded before Marlowe could. You get used to them after a while. They are a bit restrictive, but they get the job done. Restrictive. Right, because without them, the poor things would probably collapse under their own weight and standard gravity. Well, I said, gesturing toward the facility entrance. Let us get you settled. We have prepared quarters for you in the diplomatic wing. I assume you will need time to rest after your journey. Perhaps adjust to our environmental conditions. I was being considerate, thoughtful, even. Definitely not hoping they would admit they needed a nap before we began. Marlowe shook his head. Or at least I think he did. Hard to tell with all that machinery. Actually, Commander, we would prefer to begin training as soon as possible. No point in delaying. We are here to work after all. Oh, this was going to be delicious. Of course, I said, smiling with all 4 rows of my teeth. Right this way. I think you will find our facilities quite challenging. Quite challenging. That was putting it mildly. As we led them through the corridors, I noticed the humans looking around with apparent interest, their suits whirring and clicking with each movement. Other Velcarian soldiers stopped to stare, and I heard more than a few muffled laughs. The humans, to their credit, seemed completely unfazed. That should have been my first warning. The primary training chamber was a marvel of engineering, a space roughly the size of 3 combat arenas, with adjustable gravity plating, environmental controls, and enough sensor equipment to track every movement, every heartbeat, every bead of sweat. Currently it was set to standard galactic gravity, 1.00 on the universal scale, comfortable for most species. A bit light for Velcarians. Honestly, we preferred 1.2 for combat training. My team assembled on one side of the chamber, 12 of the finest soldiers in the Imperial Guard. On the other side, the 4 humans stood in their ridiculous suits, looking like children who had raided a construction site. The exercise is simple, I announced, my voice carrying across the chamber. We will run through a standard combat drill, obstacle course, target shooting, close quarters engagement scenarios. Nothing too complicated. We just want to see how our training methods compare. I was being generous, diplomatic even. This was going to be a massacre, and everyone in the room knew it. We will start at standard gravity, I continued, and increase incrementally. Most species find 1.5 to be their upper limit for effective combat operations. We typically train at 1.8. That got a reaction from the humans. Wolf's eyebrows went up slightly. Nakamura tilted her head. Reeves made a face that might have been impressed or might have been gas. Honestly, hard to tell. Marlowe just nodded. Sounds reasonable, Commander. Whenever you are ready. Reasonable. He thought 1.8 G was reasonable. Oh, this was going to be fun. I signaled to Shura, who stepped forward with the easy confidence of someone who had done this drill approximately 10,000 times. We will demonstrate first, watch and learn, as you humans say. The course activated, obstacles rising from the floor, target drones, zipping through the air, and the gravity holding steady at 1.0. For us, this was like moving through water, easy, effortless. Shira exploded forward, her movements a blur of precision and power. She vaulted over barriers, rolled under swinging obstacles, drew her sidearm and tagged 6 targets in 3 seconds flat. Dren followed, adding suppressing fire while Vuk charged through like a living battering ram. It was beautiful. Poetry in motion. The kind of performance that made other species question their life choices. We completed the course in 42 seconds. A respectable time, though not our best. We were showing off, really, adding flourishes, making it look easy because, well, it was easy. The humans watched silently from behind their helmet visors. Your turn, I said cheerfully, gesturing to the reset course. Take your time. No shame in asking for modifications if the obstacles are too challenging. Marlowe conferred briefly with his team, their suits creating a small symphony of mechanical noises. Then they moved to the starting line. And I have to admit I was curious to see how badly this would go. The buzzer sounded. The humans moved. And immediately I could see the problem. Their suits were compensating for every movement. Servos whining, pistons hissing. Reeves stumbled slightly on the first barrier. Nakamura's jump was assisted by mechanical thrust, making it look less like athletics, and more like a poorly coordinated rocket launch. They were slow, clumsy. The suits helped, sure, but they also clearly hindered. It was like watching someone try to fight while wearing a full suit of medieval armor. Possible, but inefficient. They finished in 1 minute and 18 seconds. The Valkyrian soldiers were trying not to laugh. Some were succeeding better than others. Dren had turned away entirely, his shoulders shaking. Not bad, I lied cheerfully. For a first attempt, perhaps with practice you could get under a minute. Marlowe removed his helmet, and I got my first good look at his face. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and he was breathing hard, as expected. But he was smiling. Perhaps, he agreed, though we might do better at higher gravity. These suits are calibrated for heavier conditions. Oh, now he was just being delusional. Higher gravity, I repeated, unable to keep the amusement from my voice. Captain, most species struggle to stand upright at 1.5 G. You want to increase the difficulty. If you do not mind, Commander, we would hate to waste your time with exercises that are too easy. Too easy. The human thought standard gravity was too easy. Shira caught my eye and made a gesture that roughly translated to, let us humble these fools. Very well, I said, my grin widening. Shall we say 1.5 to start? This was going to be spectacular. The gravity plating hummed as it cycled up to 1.5 G, and I felt the familiar increase in pressure. Not uncomfortable, exactly, but noticeable, like wearing a heavy coat. My muscles adjusted automatically, my body compensating with the ease of decades of training. Around me, my team shifted their stances slightly, distributing weight more carefully. This was still well within our operational parameters, but it required more effort, more focus. The humans, however, seemed to stand a bit straighter. Their suits made different noises, servos adjusting to the new conditions. Better? I asked Marlowe, not even trying to hide my sarcasm now. Getting there, he replied, and that smile was still on his face. That insufferable, confident smile that made no sense given the circumstances. Well then, I said, gesturing to the course. After you, Captain. Show us what humanity can do when properly challenged. They ran the course again, and I will admit, they were marginally better. Still slow by Valkyrian standards, still clumsy, but the suits seemed to be working more efficiently, less compensation, more direct movement. They finished in 1 minute and 4 seconds. An improvement, certainly, but hardly impressive. Adequate, Shira commented, her tone suggesting it was anything but, though I notice you still rely heavily on your mechanical assistance. What happens if those suits fail in combat? Nakamura answered this time, her voice dry as desert sand. Then we adapt, same as anyone else when their equipment fails. Adaptation requires ability, Walk rumbled, crossing his massive arms. Your suits are not augmentation, they are life support. There is a difference. Reeves bristled at that, his hand twitching toward his sidearm. Oh, this was getting interesting. A bit of emotional response, a crack in that professional facade. But Marlowe put a hand on his shoulder, calming him. You might be right, soldier, but the suits get us here. They let us work alongside species from dozens of different worlds. That seems like a fair trade to me. A trade that limits you, I interjected, warming to the topic. Tell me, Captain, what is the highest gravity you have trained in? Your maximum operational threshold. Marlowe exchanged glances with his team, and something passed between them. Some kind of silent communication that I could not quite read. Well, he said slowly, that depends on the definition of operational. We can survive higher gravity than we can fight in. Obviously, Shira said, rolling her eyes. All species can survive conditions they cannot thrive in. I am asking about combat effectiveness. What is your limit? Another pause. Another exchange of looks. Then Wolf spoke for the first time, his voice like grinding gravel. Commander, what is your maximum operational threshold for the Valkyrian Guard? It was a fair question, I supposed. A bit presumptuous, but fair. 2.2 G. I said proudly. We have trained up to 2.5, but combat effectiveness drops significantly above 2.2. Our bodies are simply not designed for sustained operations in higher gravity. 2.2, Marlowe repeated, nodding slowly. That is impressive, Commander. Truly. And yours? I pressed, sensing victory. Marlowe's smile widened just a fraction. Why do we not find out together? He suggested. Increase the gravity. Let us see where we all hit our limits. Oh, this was perfect. The human wanted to be humiliated publicly. Who was I to deny him? Lieutenant Quellis, I commanded, take us to 2.0. Let us see what these humans are made of. Shira's grin was absolutely predatory as she moved to the controls. This was going to be glorious. The gravity plating cycled up again and I felt the pressure double. 2.0. Gee. This was serious training weight. The kind of conditions we used for advanced combat certification. The kind of environment that separated the truly elite from the merely competent. My knees bent slightly, my center of gravity lowering automatically. Around me my team made similar adjustments. Dren's usual swagger was gone, replaced by careful, deliberate movements. Mira's face showed concentration. Even Vok, built like a tank, was clearly working to maintain his stance. This was hard. This was supposed to be hard. The humans, though. The humans just stood there. Their suits were making more noise now, certainly. The servos were working harder, the pneumatics hissing with each micro-adjustment, but the humans themselves seemed fine, comfortable even. Marlowe rolled his shoulders, stretched his neck, and looked at me with those insufferably calm eyes. This is nice, he said. Feels almost like home. Almost like home. At 2G, the lying sack of organic matter was trying to save face. Clearly, no species was comfortable at 2G. It was physically impossible. Shall we run the course? I asked, my voice slightly strained. Not from the gravity, of course. Just from the effort of speaking. Definitely not the gravity. If you are up for it, Commander, Marlowe replied, and there was something in his tone. Something that made my scales itch. I signaled to my team, and we approached the course starting line. Every movement required thought now, effort. The obstacles that had seemed trivial at 1G now looked genuinely challenging. The buzzer sounded, and we moved. Or tried to. Shira launched herself at the first barrier and made it over, but barely. Her landing was heavy, ungraceful. Dren fired at the target drones and missed twice before connecting. My own movements felt sluggish, like I was wading through something thick and resistant. We finished the course in 2 minutes and 38 seconds. Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. But understandable given the extreme conditions. The humans stepped up to the line and I prepared to watch them fail spectacularly. There was no way those suits could compensate for this level of gravity. No way their weak biological bodies could handle the strain. The buzzer sounded. Marlowe moved, and something was wrong. Very wrong. He was not slower. He was faster. The suit was making less noise, not more. Like it was working with his body instead of against it. He cleared the first barrier with ease, landed in a combat roll, came up firing. Behind him, Nakamura moved like liquid death. Reeves was grinning, actually grinning, as he vaulted obstacles that had given my team trouble. Wolves charged through with the kind of momentum that should have been impossible at 2G. They finished in 58 seconds. 58 seconds. At 2G, faster than they had run at 1G. The training chamber was absolutely silent except for the humming of the gravity plating and the sound of my team trying to catch their breath. Not bad, Marlowe said, removing his helmet again. He was sweating. Sure, but he was not struggling, not dying, not collapsed on the floor where he should be. The course is well designed, Commander. Good mix of strength and agility requirements. I could not speak. My voice had apparently gone on vacation without informing me. Shira, however, found hers. How? She demanded, her crystalline eyes wide with something that might have been respect or might have been horror. Your suits. They should not be able to compensate for that kind of gravity increase. It is mechanically impossible. Nakamura laughed. Actually laughed. Compensate. Lieutenant, the suits are not compensating at 2G, they are powering down. Powering down, I repeated, my brain finally rebooting enough to form words. What do you mean, powering down? Reeves answered this time, still grinning like an idiot. Commander, Earth has 9.8 meters per second squared gravity. That is roughly 1.02 standard G. We have been training in reduced gravity since we arrived. The words made sounds, but they did not make sense. Reduced, I said flatly. You think standard galactic gravity is reduced? Well, yeah, Wolf rumbled. It is lighter than home. Significantly lighter. At 1G we have to wear these suits to add resistance. Otherwise we would get weak, lose bone density, muscle mass, basic biology. Basic biology. He said basic biology like I was the one being slow. So at 2G, Marlowe continued, clearly enjoying himself now, we are finally operating at close to Earth normal. The suits do not need to work as hard, neither do we. And that was when I felt it. The slight wobble in my legs, the tremor in my hands, the way my breathing was coming harder and harder despite my best efforts. We had been standing at 2G for 5 minutes, and my body was starting to shut down. Commander, Shira said quietly, urgently, we should decrease the gravity. The team is struggling. Pride warred with survival instinct. Pride was winning, but only barely. Perhaps, I began, trying to sound dignified, we could move to 2.2G, show the humans our true operational maximum. Marlowe looked at me, really looked at me, and something in his expression changed. The amusement faded, replaced by something almost like concern. Commander Volmir, he said carefully, I do not think that would be wise. Your team is already exhibiting signs of gravitational stress. There is no shame in acknowledging physical limits. No shame. The human was telling me there was no shame. We have trained at 2.5G. I insisted, my voice coming out more defensive than I intended. We can handle 2.2. Have you trained at 2.5G for extended periods? Nakamura asked, her tone more clinical now. Less mocking. Or just brief exposure drills. Brief exposure. 5 minutes at a time, with medical staff standing by. Oh no. Lieutenant Quellis, I said, my pride making one last desperate stand. Increase to 2.2G. Shira looked at me like I had just ordered her to shoot herself in the face. But she was a good soldier. She moved to the controls. The gravity increased again, and my world became very small and very heavy. My knees buckled. Just slightly, just for a second, but they buckled. Around me I heard gasps, grunts of effort, the sound of Dren dropping to one knee. The humans were still standing, still comfortable. Wolf was actually stretching. Commander, Marlowe said, his voice sharp now, commanding, decrease the gravity. Now. We are fine. I lied, my vision starting to tunnel. Perfectly fine, just need a moment to adjust. Commander, you have approximately 30 seconds before you lose consciousness, Nakamura said, and she was moving toward the controls. Your cardiovascular system is not designed for this level of sustained gravitational stress. You need to decrease the gravity immediately. Do not touch those controls, I ordered, trying to sound authoritative while my legs were actively betraying me. We are conducting a military exercise and I am still in command of this facility. And then Vok fell, just straight up fell. 300 pounds of elite Valkyrian warrior collapsed to the floor with a sound like a dropped piano. Right, Marlowe said, and suddenly he was moving. Fast. Impossibly fast at 2.2G. He crossed the chamber, physically pushed Nakamura aside, and slammed his fist onto the emergency gravity control. The pressure released all at once and I dropped from 2.2G to 1.0G in the space of a heartbeat. I collapsed. We all collapsed. The entire Valkyrian team, the pride of the Imperial Guard, crumpled to the floor like puppets with cut strings. And the humans, still in their ridiculous suits, stood over us, looking down. Perfectly fine. I have been in combat. I have faced enemy fire, survived ship crashes, been wounded more times than I care to count. I thought I knew what humiliation felt like. I was wrong. Lying on the floor of my own training facility, staring up at the humans who were not even breathing hard, I understood humiliation on a level I had not thought possible. Marlowe crouched down next to me, careful not to touch, and his expression was professional, concerned, which somehow made everything worse. Commander, I need to know if you are injured, he said, his voice calm, like he was talking to a child who had fallen off a swing. Did you hit your head when you fell? Any chest pain? Difficulty breathing beyond the expected exertion? I am fine. I managed to croak out. Just need a moment. You need more than a moment, Nakamura said, appearing on my other side with what looked like a medical scanner. You need fluids, rest, and probably a lecture about pushing biological limits. Your heart rate is elevated. Your blood pressure is concerning. And I am reading micro tears in your leg muscles. You just gave yourself the equivalent of a full-body workout in less than 10 minutes. Shiro was sitting up nearby, her crystalline eyes dimmed with exhaustion and something else. Shame. Maybe. Or just the crushing weight of reality. You were training in reduced gravity, she said, her voice hollow. This whole time, you have been operating in reduced gravity. Reeves nodded, helping Dren sit up. The Valkyrian marksman looked like he had aged 10 cycles in as many minutes. Yeah, it is actually a problem for long deployments. We have to do extra resistance training just to maintain baseline fitness. Earth gravity is brutal. 9.8 meters per second squared, I repeated, my brain still struggling with the math. That is barely above standard. How is that possible? How did you evolve in that much gravity? Wolf shrugged, a gesture that looked almost comical in his heavy suit. We do not know, Commander. Best guess is that Earth is just a terrible place that tried really hard to kill us and we were too stubborn to die. High gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive wildlife, diseases, natural disasters. Our planet spent millions of years testing us and we passed. Barely. The gravity suits, Mira said from where she was lying on the floor. They are not assistants. They are resistance training. Exactly, Marlowe confirmed. At standard galactic gravity we would lose approximately 1% bone density per month without countermeasures. The suits provide enough resistance to keep us healthy. At 1.5 G we can start removing the suit components. At 2 G we are finally operating in something close to our natural environment. What is your maximum? I asked. Not sure I wanted to know the answer. The humans exchanged glances again, and this time I could read the communication. They were deciding how much to tell me, how much I could handle. We have trained up to 4G, Marlowe said quietly. For short periods, fighter pilots can handle 6 or 7G with proper equipment, but only for seconds at a time. Sustained combat operations are possible up to about 3G before we start experiencing the same issues you just did. 3G. They could fight at 3G. Why did you not tell us? Shira asked, and there was actual hurt in her voice. Why let us mock you, laugh at you? Nakamura smiled, and it was not a nice smile, because, Lieutenant, every species we have encountered makes the same assumptions. They see the suits, they see our apparent weakness, and they underestimate us. It is useful, tactically speaking. You let us humiliate ourselves, I said, understanding dawning. You let us build up our pride so the fall would be harder. No, Marlowe said firmly. We let you make your own assumptions. We never lied. We never claimed to be weak. You saw what you wanted to see. And he was right. Ancestors help me. He was right. We had looked at the humans with their suits and their soft skin and their strange biology, and we had assumed. We had judged. We had laughed. And they had let us. Had stood there in their mechanical shells, slow and clumsy in light gravity, and let us think we were superior. How many species have done this? I asked, sitting up slowly, testing my legs. How many have made the same mistake we did? Reeves grinned. You are number 47, Commander. And honestly, you lasted longer than most. We have had some species tap out at 1.5 G. 47 species had fallen for the same trap. Because it was not a trap. Not really. It was just reality. The humans were not trying to trick anyone. They were just existing in a universe that was, from their perspective, far too light. Medical teams were arriving now, rushing in to check on the Valkyrian soldiers who had pushed themselves past their limits. A part of me wanted to wave them off, to insist we were fine, but I was learning. Slowly, painfully, but learning. Thank you, Captain, I said, accepting a hand up from Wolf. His grip was gentle, careful not to hurt me. For the lesson, and for stopping the exercise before someone was seriously injured. Just doing our job, Commander, Marlowe replied, and for what it is worth, your team showed excellent form at 1.5 G. Better than a lot of species we have trained with. It was a compliment. A genuine one. And somehow, that made me feel even worse. 3 hours later I sat in the medical bay with an ice pack on my legs and my pride in even worse condition. The entire Valkyrian team was there. Various stages of recovery. All of us looking like we had gone 12 rounds with a cargo hauler. The humans had stayed. Not to gloat, but to help. They had assisted the medical teams, provided data on gravitational stress injuries, and generally been far more gracious than we deserved. Marlowe entered the medical bay, carrying a tray of drinks, something the humans called coffee. It smelled like burnt plant matter and regret. Thought you might want some, he said, offering me a cup. Fair warning, it is strong. We brew it heavier than most species can handle.
Of course they did. Of course even their recreational
beverages were extreme. I took a sip and immediately regretted every decision that had led me to this moment. It tasted like someone had dissolved a plasma battery in motor oil. This is horrible, I said. Yeah, Marlowe agreed, sitting down next to me with his own cup. But it grows on you. Give it a few hundred cups. We sat in silence for a moment, drinking our terrible coffee, contemplating the nature of assumptions and pride. I need to apologize, Captain, I said finally. We were disrespectful, arrogant. We judged you based on appearances and assumptions rather than evidence. Marlowe shook his head. Commander, you were not wrong to be skeptical. We do look ridiculous in those suits. We do have limitations. And honestly, if I saw an alien species that needed mechanical assistance just to walk around, I would probably make similar assumptions. But you let us continue, Shura said from her bed nearby. You let us increase the gravity even when you knew it was dangerous for us. We tried to warn you, Nakamura pointed out. Multiple times. You just were not listening. Fair point. What happens now? Dren asked, his voice subdued. Do you report this to the Galactic Council? Tell them that the vaunted Velcarian Guard collapsed like fresh recruits. Why would we do that? Wolf asked, genuine confusion in his voice. You made a mistake. You learned from it. That is the whole point of training exercises. Besides, Reeves added with a grin, if we reported every species that underestimated us, we would never have time to do actual work. I laughed. Could not help it. A short, bitter bark of laughter that hurt my bruised ribs but felt necessary. So what do we do now? I asked. Continue the exercises. Try to salvage some dignity from this disaster. Marlowe finished his coffee and stood. Now, Commander, we train together, properly. We show you the techniques we use for high-gravity combat. You show us your tactics for low-gravity operations. We learn from each other. That is what joint exercises are supposed to be about. He extended his hand, and I took it. His grip was firm but controlled, strong enough to help me up, gentle enough not to hurt. And maybe, he added with a smile, we start those exercises at 1.2 G. Build up slowly. No point in hospitalizing anyone on day one. Day one was today, I pointed out. Exactly, he said. So let us call this day 0. A warm-up. Tomorrow we start for real. As the humans left the medical bay, I looked at my team. My proud, elite, thoroughly humbled team. Well, I said finally, I suppose we have learned something valuable today. What is that, Commander? Mira asked. I took another sip of the horrible coffee, felt it burn down my throat and smiled. Never judge a species by their equipment. Judge them by their homeworld. And if that homeworld is described as a death planet with extreme gravity, aggressive wildlife and environmental hazards, I paused, run the other direction. Fast. But we cannot run fast in high gravity, Vok pointed out. Exactly, I said, which is why the humans will always catch us, so we might as well learn to work with them instead. Shura raised her own cup of terrible coffee, to working with humans, and to never underestimating them again. We all drank. It was still horrible, but like Marlowe said, maybe it would grow on us. Along with a healthy respect for the species that had to evolve in nearly full standard gravity and thought that wearing mechanical weights was necessary to stay healthy. The humans were not weak. They were not clumsy. They were not dependent on their suits. They were just living in a universe that was far, far too easy for them. And we had learned that lesson the hard way. On the floor of our own training facility, staring up at the species we had mocked, realizing that they had been going easy on us the entire time. Tomorrow, we would train properly, learn from them, maybe, eventually, earn back some measure of respect. But today, we would sit in the medical bay, drink horrible coffee, and contemplate the nature of pride and gravity. Mostly gravity, because apparently when pride meets physics, physics wins every single time.